Good day, ladies and gentlemen. It is 2024. I actually made an end of year vlog. Unfortunately, something happened before the end of the year that basically made that vlog obsolete. Essentially, at the end of 2023, my grandfather sadly passed at the age of 83. He'd been dealing with cancer earlier in the year, and while all his prognoses looked good, he sadly, succumbed and passed. I was there when it happened. I tried to resuscitate him, and sadly that did not work. And now he is sadly gone. Now, I've been emotionally devastated, gutted, all the rest, but somehow in the intervening time of my life, I've become much stronger than I thought I was and have been able to deal with this major emotional upheaval. Now, for those that don't know, my grandfather has been one of the major pillars of my life. Literally all my life. I have literally millions of great memories of him and I doing all sorts of stuff, from playing video games together to going to the range to just doing science stuff. And so this was a major death in my life. It's like, and the fact is, though, I've been able to hold on and get on with things as best I can. But it's one of those things, it's just always buzzing around in my head, that he's gone. That I can't just, where I'm filming right now, I could literally, when he was alive, just walk out the door and go talk to him. It's like, I've been around him for 35 years, doing stuff with him for 35 years. One of my earliest memories is of riding on his bicycle when I was like 4 or 5. He had a little bicycle that he would ride around, and there was a little car seat or bicycle seat for me. And we would do stuff like that. He taught me how to shoot. He introduced me to all these major franchises. He introduced me into gaming. It's just all this stuff. Got me interested in computers. Realistically, being a tech guy like I am, I'm really following in his footsteps, even though for the first half of his life he was a fireman. But he, like me, I'm like him in that, I will reinvent myself now and again, and that's what he did. He was a fireman for like 40 years. In fact, he spent 20 of those years at NASA, and actually met some of the major astronauts. He actually got to see, and I believe worked inside the lunar lander, which is like the coolest thing ever. He even fought a very famous fire. I forget exactly which fire it was. I think it was in Texas City, if I'm not mistaken. It was one of those things where I watched a History Channel presentation on that fire, and I was like, "Hey, have you ever heard of this fire?" And he was like, "Yeah, I fought it." It's like, what? Uh, and then in the 80s, he got into computers. He got a ZX81, which predates the ZX Spectrum. It was sold by Timex, the watch people, and he built it. Remember, no internet, no YouTube tutorials. He had to build it himself. Unfortunately, he put the processor in upside down and it fried the system, so he had to get another processor sent over from the UK, and he put it together, and he got into computers that way. He really loved computers. He got to work at Compaq. Compaq's not as well known as it used to be. Compaq used to be a pretty big PC company in the 90s. He started out on the assembly line, ladies and gentlemen. So much for that white privilege. And he had to work his way up from the assembly line. In fact, one of the ways he was able to work his way up is because he always comported himself with a lot of dignity. He dressed well. He wore a tie. Working on the assembly line. Real grunt work. And that got him noticed, and he started to get promoted through the line. It was thanks to him that Y2K didn't really cause a lot of problems here in Texas, at least. He worked a lot of hours doing that. But like me and Gramps, we were always very, very close, him and I. I could list off any number of great memories, like riding around. He got me, I was pretty spoiled, thanks to my grandfather. He bought me for my 10th birthday in the year 2000 a Honda Elite motor scooter, and he got himself one. That was a little older of a model. I think it was like a 95 or something, and we rode all around this neighborhood, and we had so much fun with that. He taught me how to drive, you know, and he taught me all the manly stuff that seems to be lacking in today's culture, honor, integrity, don't sleep around, don't get drunk all the time, be somebody who has a good name. I remember you mentioned that, like, You know, when you die, the only thing you take with you is your good name. And, well, my grandfather most assuredly has a very good name, and I try to live up to that standard. You know, it's one of those things. I feel very bad for people today who don't have somebody like that in their lives. You know, I got to tell you, Andrew Tate and people like that aren't really a good replacement for a proper father figure, that's for sure. You know, people had their superheroes, their Batmans, you know, their Spider-Mans, Han Solo. I like Han Solo a lot, but my real hero growing up was my grandfather. That was, to me, he was the real superhero, you know? He knew everything. He was always able to run really fast, lift all the weights. And he was old when I was born. He was already in his 50s. And he was able to do all this stuff. He never became this fat old man who couldn't do anything. He was never like that. Even up to the very last day. He literally died. He literally died getting ready for the next day. He was, you know, shaving and he just went. And, you know, that's the thing. He was never this old guy who was this old curmudgeon. He was never like that. And it's something that, you know, I feel very blessed by divine providence that I've had him in my life to age 35. You know, it hurts a lot, like every day, but I think to myself that I've had him my entire life and I'm not young anymore, you know. It's a really cool thing, you know, and it's something that I'm going to miss him. And I'm not only just going to miss him, I miss him all the time. You know, I'd like to be able to walk out of this room and be like, yeah, I filmed some more videos. It's be like, does anybody actually want to hear what you say? I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure they do. Now, he was only joking about stuff like that. He knew that I did pretty good on the whole YouTube thing and everything. So, yeah, 2024 is going to be a very difficult year because of his passing, but I'm strong enough to persevere. In fact, this video right here is being recorded after I just recorded the openings and outros for all of the, for 4 more videos. More major league reviews that are going to be a lot longer than the videos that have come up recently. I'm actually going to eventually get back to some more long form content. Not often, but still going to be more long form stuff. The first long form video I'm going to do is a retrospective of Turok the Dinosaur Hunter. I haven't had a chance to work on that yet because I'm still reading through the Turok comic from the 90s because I want to actually touch on what happens in that comic. There's 47 issues. That's not that long, but I want to actually pay attention and retain what's in them. I got some videos planned for this year. Like, I'm going to do a reviews of all 3 Time Splitters games, finally. Yeah, I don't know why it took me this long. One major video I'm going to be doing is on Doom 2. I say it's a major video. It's going to get major views because it's Doom related, and I'm going to review Doom 2 on its 30th anniversary, but there's really only so much you can say about Doom 2. It's like, also, why is Doom 2 30 years old? You know, but it's like, I'm going to be talking about Doom 2. And I'm going to get flamed for it, I bet. It's one of those things that's kind of depressing, is I would love it if me and my grandfather could have made a remake. There's an old video I did on the Resident Evil books, and at that time I didn't like the Resident Evil games, but I liked the books, and so I had this little scene in there, no flames, and I held up this shield that me and my grandfather had made, a Scottish Targe, and he was off camera spraying some spray paint into a blowtorch to make it look like there's these actual flames. I can't do that anymore, but I'd like to do that, because I'm going to talk about how Doom 2 is kind of dull, it's kind of boring, goes on a bit over long. I might just put that clip in there anyway. In the next couple weeks, probably, going to get an intro to Ultimate Marvel comics, because I want to talk about those, because those are over 20 years old now. Ugh. And Ultimate Marvel really is kind of important, even though it died a very sad death because, well, my edginess, but we'll talk about that in the video. I'm also going to talk about the earliest introduction of the Mandalorians. Now, Boba Fett is obviously the first time we see a Mandalorian, but most of the audience didn't know that. I didn't know that. And I didn't know that until I actually read the novelization. But when we actually see other Mandalorians than Boba Fett. They were the fighting Irish back then. So I'm going to talk about that. Mandalorians have been a part of Star Wars since the very beginning. There was a Mandalorian character named Finn Shaza who, in the original Star Wars comics in the 80s, was perhaps not a big part, but definitely a side character to that. I think if Disney had been smart, they should have just cribbed a lot of stuff from those early comics, but they didn't. The early Star Wars comics weren't bad, but they were very much pulp science fiction. The EU was different in terms of tone. The EU was a little more serious and a little more, I want to say, logical about what it did. And Star Wars can be both. Star Wars can be science fantasy, it can be pulp. Sadly, modern day Star Wars is just boring, generic trash. I mean, as we can see how all those shows crash and burn. People aren't tired of Star Wars, they just are tired of crappy Star Wars. People aren't tired of superheroes, they're just tired of terrible superheroes. No one cares about Miss Marvel. If there was a Cyclops movie, it's like, what can he see? It's Cyclops. And like, show him have to learn his powers and fight somebody. People would watch that. Of that I can get. Well, if it was good. If it was good, people would watch it. I think that's one of the reasons why Godzilla Minus One did so well, is it was a good movie, and people said, oh man, have you seen that giant stompy lizard? And they went to see it. One other thing to talk about is YouTube Shorts. I've kind of stayed away from that because I don't really like the whole TikTok style thing. I've actually got 6 I'm going to upload soon enough. I was able to figure out how to really summarize things pretty well. I don't know if I'm going to continue making those because I don't really like super tiny short form content. I like to be able to talk about things a bit more, but we'll see how they do, and I'll see if I can continue making them. Let's see what else. At the time this video is being recorded, it's been really bloody cold in Texas. Like, we're talking like 20 degrees Fahrenheit, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what that is in Celsius. I only use freedom units. Thank you very much. But yeah, it's like 20 degrees. Ugh. What happened? So yeah, trying to get used to that. Those of you who live in more cold climes are like, 20 degrees, that's nothing. It's like, yeah, but 120 is actually worse, but whatever. So yeah, with all that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, I'm General Lotz, and when it comes to life, you're going to have a lot of, this is going to sound kind of paradoxical, but if you do it right in life, you're probably going to have a lot of emotional pain because people die, especially when they're in their 80s. But you know what? I would rather deal with the emotional pain and have had all the good memories with my grandfather than just be like, oh yeah, whatever. That's the thing, It's just, life is going to have that kind of shit happen. And you just got to deal with it and power on because, life is sadly altogether rather short. And you do need to make the most of it as best you can. And I don't mean like you got to go do something every day or you got to live every day like it's your last, man. But it's like at least have the proper mindset to where you can enjoy it. It's very easy to have a very emo or negative mindset about life. And I can't tell you how to get rid of it if you have it. For me, I did have that very emo mindset about life. And it took me years to get over that. To change my mind from like, everything sucks, man, to like, maybe everything doesn't suck. Maybe things can be difficult, but you can deal with that difficulty and perhaps not make it better than it was before, but at least make it good. Actually, I got more stuff to talk about. Talking about videos. There's going to be a video on a bunch of Star Wars games. Specifically Battle for Naboo. I've been replaying that and getting footage for that for May the 4th. And that game is really good. I didn't remember it being that good, but good God. Factor 5 knew what they were doing. I mean, it also has a much better story than Episode 1. Episode 1 is terrible. And before anyone talks about my childhood, I was, I think, 9 years old when that movie came out. It should be my childhood. But you know what? It wasn't. It was terrible. Jar Jar is god-awful. That movie is filled with so many, I don't even say plot holes. It's just plot contrivances. Like, oh, Annie does just happen to fall into a Naboo starfighter. It's like, really? Episode 1, Battle for Naboo, has a guy creates an insurgency against the Trade Federation. That is a much more compelling plot than Little Orphan Annie. Also, Anakin Skywalker really needed to be at least 12 years old to be compelling. 9-year-old Annie, not so much. I mean, I'm not blaming Jake Lloyd. He's an actor. I don't know why people would blame the actor. It's like, you shouldn't have taken that role. You should be poor. It's like, go fuck yourself. No, its character's bad, If you had 12-year-old Anakin jumping around with his lightsaber, jumping in a plane and flying it off, okay, I could buy that. 9-year-old? No. Why would the autopilot take him to the battle? Why would it do that? Who programmed that? Was R2 doing that? Fuck you, R2. Why was the power generator for that Lucre Hulk in the hangar? There's just so many problems with that. And you know what? The book was good. The book was good. Okay, there was a novelization for episode 1. There were two, actually. There was a child novelization and an adult novelization. I read the kid novelization before I ever saw the movie, and I thought it was great. Then I saw the movie, and I thought it was terrible. The novel for adults, which is, of course, part of the EU, mentioned Darth Bane and was written by Terry Brooks of sort of Shannara fame. You know, I know some of y'all love the prequels. I get it. You know, some of y'all grew up with that as kids. I was the kid that grew up with that too. I was 12 years old when Attack of the Clones came out, and that movie was god-awful too, until the last 20 minutes. When those clones start flying in with those lardy gunships, I was like, oh my god, it's a good movie again. And, you know, episode 3 was pretty alright. Books, way better. Like, episode 3 book, so much better. Last bit of Star Wars stuff before we call it a video. Evidently there's a YouTuber. I was told about this the other day. There's a YouTuber named Star Wars Theory. Now, I don't really go in for a lot of these lore tubers just because they kind of annoy me because they get a lot of the lore wrong or they don't know it in the first place. So this guy basically was talking about... Now, this might not be true. I'm just saying, this is something I was told. I didn't bother looking it up because I didn't really care that much. But I do want to talk about this just because I know from experience that if he did say this, it's wrong. Basically, this guy was saying that there are no female Star Wars fans. Now, on the surface, that sounds like, that's my sexism. But I can kind of understand it. You know, if you've never met a cool girl, you may not know that there are girls out there that actually have a personality. And so you may be led to believe that girls don't like Star Wars. You know, I had friends that were my own age back in the day, and I didn't have that many of them. I didn't talk to them nearly as much as I talk to my friends today. But they were all like, yeah, girls just love to go party. They don't care about video games. And so if that's all you're told and that's all you hear, then you got the MGTOWs today that are saying women are all evil and stuff like that. You might be led to believe that there are no female Star Wars fans. However, in my experience, yes, there are. Every single girl I've ever dated has been a big Star Wars fan. The kind of girl you'd want to date should like Star Wars. The real Star Wars, and shouldn't be Ma-Rey or Ma-Ahsoka. Although I will say this, though. Some of those Ahsoka cosplayers, pretty hot. Some of those Rey cosplayers, pretty hot. Not going to deny that. But the fact is, there are real female Star Wars fans. There are females out there who are not evil, stupid, boring, or a combination of all that. There are females out there that are good. I know this from personal experience, okay? And I'm not what you would call Mr. Suave going out trying to meet people. And if even I can meet somebody halfway decent, or more than that, surely all of y'all out there can too. Alright, I'm General Lotz. I'm going to wish you good, hot Ahsoka cosplayers. I'm going to wish you good, really hot Darth Talon cosplayers. Oh, yes! Or whatever makes you happy.
If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and please consider leaving a like or a comment, as the algorithm desires your soul. And I want to thank all those fans who have supported this channel, both past and present.